The Three Musketeers by Alexandre Dumas is an interesting story. I really didn't know what I was getting into when I picked up this book and started reading it. I really expected something pretty straightforward, three guys go in, defeat the evil cardinal, and walk out as heroes. Well, I was completely wrong. This story has a very interesting layout, and I really want to go and talk about the characters because whenever I think of the Three Musketeers, and you might think the same, they sound like courageous and brave people. Well, I was wrong, and if you think the same thing, you might be wrong too. So, to get us started, let's talk about our main guy, D'Artagnan. So, first of all, he's not even a musketeer at the beginning of the book, anyways. He is just a random dude. He he's just like, hey, I want to be a musketeer, and just wants to pull up to the Big Apple and become almost the highest role in the military that you can be. But he has a note that says, hey, he should be, so it's all okay in his mind. Well, on his way into the big city, he goes by a town of Meung, I believe it's called. In Meung, D'Artagnan sees some mysterious gentleman who insults the steed that D'Artagnan is riding. And even D'Artagnan says it's not exactly a beautiful sight. It could be a sight for sore eyes, you could say. But he wasn't going to take that crap from some random dude. So, being the very young and very angry person that he was, D'Artagnan hops off his horse and tries to fight this man. Well, this man sends out all his lackeys and just absolutely beats the living crap out of D'Artagnan. Just loses terribly. And he even loses a note that says, hey, you should become a musketeer. Just stupid. And that introduces you to D'Artagnan and the interesting characters we're about to meet. So, I'm not going to go through the whole story and all the little nitpicky things, but I'm going to say some other big things that D'Artagnan did later on in the story. So, D'Artagnan, when he gets into the big city, and he's like going around saying how he wants to become a musketeer, and then he finally gets told, like, hey, you can't just have a note that says you should become one to become one. It's like a lot of work, and you need to do a lot of work. So, D'Artagnan walks out, is like all devastated and stuff that he can't become one, and he swears that he sees the mysterious guy. And he's like, hey, I'm gonna come and fight you. He's like, I want to get my revenge. And when he's running, he stumbles into one of the musketeers, one of our main guys, and he just basically pisses him off, and then they agree to go fight later that day. And D'Artagnan is just angry and just doesn't care. Just says like, I don't care. I got something else to do. But we'll fight then. So D'Artagnan keeps on running, and he basically does that same exact thing two more times, and basically takes all of the other musketeers, the Three Musketeers, the one that the book is talking about, and basically goes into a fight with them. All the fights weren't supposed to be at the same time. They were gonna do it fairly, where it was gonna be one guy against the other one, and they could both bring two lackeys to help them. Well, the Three Musketeers didn't know that D'Artagnan had stuff to fight with all of them. So when they pulled up, they're like, oh, you guys also wanted to fight this guy? And D'Artagnan pulls up alone. He doesn't have any friends because he just arrived to the city. So he just pulls up alone to this 3v1 fight against three musketeers, where I'll say again, they were like really elite soldiers. And he's just like, all right, I'll fight you. What is the audacity? I personally, I don't know whether to think this guy is stupid or courageous. I don't really know. But anyways, he wants to fight them all. Luckily, that doesn't happen because a bunch of the Cardinals guards come falling in and like, hey, you guys can't fight. And they all fight the Cardinals guards and they win and happily ever after, all that stuff. Well, D'Artagnan, he's a hothead, he's fighting, whatever. He doesn't change much later. He doesn't fight nearly as much as the book goes on, but he does do more vile stuff. So I'm gonna skip a lot here and jump to one of the more important parts. So again, there's always spoilers. So if you've gotten this far, then I don't know what to tell you. He pulls up to this girl's house, Milady's house, as she is called in the name of in the book. I'm not a white knight on Reddit or something, so please don't cancel me. So basically, D'Artagnan goes in and he falls in love with Milady. She's beautiful, gorgeous, all that stuff. She does this to everybody. That's her whole shtick. And D'Artagnan then proceeds to learn that she doesn't like him and that she's just using him because she's actually part of the Cardinals' forces. And D'Artagnan doesn't really like that. And I mean, who wouldn't be, okay? You fall in love with this girl, she acts like she loves you and whatever, and then, she's not loving you and whatever. So D'Artagnan's like, pissed off. Like, I mean, you thought he was a hothead before? Well, he takes it up 100 notches. And he learns that Milady has a love interest in a different person. And he's like, well, I'm just going to intercept the notes because, I mean, they don't have cell phones back then, so they can't just text each other. They got to send notes. Well, he basically takes these notes and writes back to her, acting as if he's the dude that she's writing to, and basically says, oh, I'm also in love with you. I'm glad that you finally told me and whatever, and we got to meet and we gotta figure this out. And basically, he's like, we only can meet at night, and if it's pitch black. So he then proceeds to sneak into her room when it's night, acting as if he's the love interest. And he has intercourse, we'll say that. And yeah, I don't see how that makes me think he's a good guy. I get it, it's revenge and whatever, but that's not really great. That doesn't really give you the right to do that, but whatever, I guess. Milady turns out to be an absolute horrible person, so maybe some of you can say, oh, she deserved it. But personally, I don't think that she deserved that with the knowledge we knew and he knew, but whatever, I guess. So then what happens? Do you remember the guy at the beginning who sent his lackeys in to beat the living crap out of D'Artagnan? Well, like way, way late in the book, he meets D'Artagnan finally, and he turns out to be one of the Cardinals' top guys. And D'Artagnan's like, oh, so you're the guy I don't like. Well, I guess I can't kill you because you loved so much, so we're just going to have to be friends. And that's just baffling to me, how this guy is just so hot-headed and does unspeakable things, like just willing to kill anyone over anything. And then he's just like, oh, you're the guy that beat the living crap out of me more than anyone else in the book. Well, I guess we're gonna be friends. It's just baffling, but I guess, he learned throughout the book, you could say. Personally, I think he's still very hot-headed, but I'm no genius. But that's the start. That's one of the characters, and that's not even one of the Three Musketeers. That's the forbidden fourth one. We're gonna start with the first Musketeer, Athos. So he's personally my favorite. He's kind of a badass, but he's also kind of dumb, kind of an idiot. He courageously fights these people that were trying to intercept D'Artagnan from traversing through the wilderness, and um, basically you don't hear from him for a while in the book, and you're just like, oh, what happened to him? Well, when you figure out what happened, D'Artagnan strolls in, and everyone's like, oh, he's just hiding in this cellar with a bunch of wine. And D'Artagnan goes up to the cellar door and is like, hey, what are you doing in there? And Athos is just drunk, absolutely wasted in the cellar, just like bunkering down. I mean, Ruby Ridge style, just will not leave. Um, so D'Artagnan finally is able to talk to him and get him out, and just absolute drunk mess that like ate everything and drank everything in the cellar, and just not a great situation for him. And the preceding morning, after D'Artagnan sees his friend in so much distress, and finally like waking him up like, hey dude, you need to stop drinking and all that stuff, well, Athos then proceeds to gamble everything away, like not just his, but D'Artagnan's stuff, the horses, the saddles. And then the big one was D'Artagnan's diamond ring that he was gifted from the queen herself. So Athos is not seeming like a great guy for doing that. And then finally, Athos is like, well, what if I then gamble away my lackey, You just got to keep on gambling to get yourself out of debt. Not the best mentality, but I guess it worked for him. The only thing they didn't get was their horses back, which was kind of important, but they found different ones later, even though the ones that they gave away were very nice horses. Anyways, they got everything back, and Athos just is like, oh, right, everything is okay. You don't need to hate me anymore. And D'Artagnan's just like, don't do that again. And then Athos, returning back to his lackey that he has, I mean, all of the Musketeers and D'Artagnan have a lackey. Well, Athos takes his to the next level. His lackey just can't talk. He will not allow his lackey to talk. He will only allow his lackey to use hand signs. And I get it, like control, all that stuff. I don't have a lackey, so I don't really understand how to use one. But he definitely uses it differently than the other Musketeers. So, the lackey is well behaved, well mannered, really decent, probably the best character, like as in morals and niceness in the story of them all. He then, later in the book, he sees that the cardinal is coming up to like hear what the Three Musketeers are talking about, and the Musketeers are trying to be silent and quiet with their independent stuff because they know that the cardinal's not a great guy, so they're trying to keep it secret. So the lackey is like finally says something. He's like, hey, look over here, Athos. And Athos loses his shit. Like, why are you talking? Shut your mouth. And it's just kind of funny because it's like your lackey helps you in probably the best way ever, and you're just going to yell at him. So Athos doesn't seem like a great guy, and he punishes the lackey by making him eat a piece of paper, but he has to wash it down with wine, so that's his non-punishment because he helped him. So, Athos, although he's not a great guy all the time, he's still my favorite. He has his badass moments. But next we have Aramis. Aramis is an interesting character. He's very quiet. He doesn't talk much through the book. He has his moments, but he's usually pretty quiet. But he is the smartest of them all. He writes like poetry and is a follower of God. But that's kind of my biggest point with Aramis. He's definitely the smartest of the group. He definitely has less of the bumbling idiot moments that the other ones do, except one part that really got me. So a part of the book where Aramis goes on his little, like, I'm going to help D'Artagnan by fighting off these bad guys so D'Artagnan can keep going. So almost like a heroic sacrifice type of deal, which Athos and Porthos, well, not as much Porthos, but Athos does too. And basically, when he finds Aramis, Aramis is just going off about how he's going to join the church and forget musketeering and just going to worry only about the church and nothing else. He's done with musketeering. He's left that life behind. And then D'Artagnan's like, oh, I wonder if this has to do with this mistress you had, and that sucks. Well, anyways, I have this note from your mistress, and Aramis just stops where he's at and looks at D'Artagnan and is just like, what are you talking about? What do you mean? And I mean, on a split second, he just completely 180s his decision. Is like, screw the church, let's go kill some people. You're not that far, but like, he just completely forgot what he was saying and just went straight to being a musketeer again. And it just makes me laugh. I mean, he's definitely like I said, definitely less of the bumbling idiot moments, but that was definitely his biggest one that made me literally like re-listen to that part again of the audiobook. I was like, what the heck? Okay, all right, he's just now a musketeer again. Okay, all that talk was just talk. But now we have Porthos. Porthos, he's the dumbest, all right? Even, like, from everything I've read, he's considered the dumb character. And he's definitely the biggest stooge, I'm doing air quotations around that, of them all. Tries to be this really big and out there guy, but he's a gambler, all right? He gambles all the time. It is quite prevalent throughout the book. And remember how Aramis and Athos had to stop and help D'Artagnan with their heroic sacrifice type of deals? Well, Porthos, he kind of, I believe how it went was they were in a restaurant type of deal, getting breakfast, I believe it was. And this drunk guy walked up to them and they're like, you guys ain't crap. I'm better than you. And Porthos ain't taking that. No, he's like, oh, you want to go, drunk man? And they fight. And the other three, D'Artagnan, Athos, and Aramis, are just like, let's let him do his thing and let's get going. He'll catch up. Well, he never does catch up. So when D'Artagnan finally pulls up back to where Porthos was last seen, which was at the restaurant, he learns that Porthos was sick, as Porthos put it. When he went into Porthos's chamber, we'll call it, Porthos was not letting anyone in. He was like willing to kill anyone who got near it, just willing to fight. And anyways, he was like, oh, D'Artagnan's here, let him in, let us talk. And he's like, oh, I'm so sick, I haven't been able to do anything. And I believe that D'Artagnan was already told that Porthos got hurt in that fight. And I don't know if he lost necessarily, but he got hurt. And Porthos didn't know that D'Artagnan knew that. So D'Artagnan's like, yup, I bet you did get really sick. And yeah, I mean, he's a good friend for that. But personally, I might have called out Porthos for that bullcrap. Like, hey, man, we're cool here. Just admit that you got your crap knocked in. It's kind of funny. But D'Artagnan's not me. He's much more hot-headed, we'll say. And anyways, Porthos, while he was sick, got quite the bill because he wasn't just gonna sit in this room and not eat anything. He demanded food, he demanded wine, and he never paid for any of it, but was willing to fight if anybody mentioned price. And then D'Artagnan had to deal with it, and Porthos just kept on gambling, like, hey, let's gamble more. And it's just kind of funny, but Porthos is definitely not the greatest. But when it came to all of them needing to go to this big siege to go fight, Porthos just had to look the best, had to look in pristine condition. So he goes to a lawyer's wife that he's been having an affair with and convinces to get money. So not a great guy still, just kind of a piece of crap. But he got the money, and later on, the husband died, and Porthos married in and got all the money so he can keep his gambling up. But definitely the weakest link of them all, but still a great character, okay? That's what I also want to hit on before we end this is an old book, okay? The characters are all hot-headed in the book. Like, it's not just D'Artagnan. They all fight whenever the slightest thing goes wrong. And that's just a change of time. And I get it. I've been making fun of it, and I just find it amusing. It's funny. And I hope that you did too, of course. But I just think that it's important for us to also understand that this is a different time and actions are different. And when we look back on that time, we're like, we're thinking it's funny, but I mean, let's talk about samurai. Samurai have been known to fight anybody for the slightest things also. So it's just kind of a change of time. And that the book is a perfect representation of it, because we talk about the over excess amount of pride that we hold about these days. And then you read books like this and you're like, if you call what we have pride, back then, that's on a whole nother level. Like, I would say right now, you can definitely have an excess amount of pride, but confidence can often be like mixed up with pride. And I think that this book, after you read it, you figure out that there is a difference between confidence and pride. And I think that it's something we need to talk about more these days, because people are lacking confidence and won't say that they're the best or say that they're awesome because they're scared that they're going to sound too prideful. And I feel like people need to quit thinking that way and think a little bit more confidently. I'm not saying to become like thinking you're the next Jesus or something. I don't want you doing that, but just get some more confidence and definitely read this book. And I really hope you enjoyed this video. So thank you again. And if you're interested, I have no other videos up at this time because I'm brand new. So I hope you liked it.